Well, there's about just under 1,000 students at my school, and we are, let's see, about 95% of our students are white, and then 5% is a mixture of minority students. But we have a very diverse socioeconomic income group up here in Woodland Park. So we have people that live in very, very affluent dwellings and homes, and also people that are just barely scraping by. So, and everything in between. So even though we're not ethnically diverse, we're very socioeconomically diverse. So it's a very interesting place to be. The positives are primarily that I get to talk to all my students every day, and I really know where they are in their understanding. I'm not just standing in front of the classroom talking at my students, but I'm walking around talking to every one of my students every day. I think one of the other benefits is this flexibility that the students can access the material in terms of the stuff to learn anytime they're ready. So, if they're at the end of something and they want to, watch the next video in class, they can do that. If they want to do it before school or after school or at lunch, they can do that. If they want to do it at home, that's an option as well. So the flexibility, I think, is great. One of the difficulties is I have to make sure everyone has access to this stuff. So not all of my students have internet at home, so I need to provide these videos on like a jump drive or onto like a DVD for my students that don't have internet at home. So that's something I have to be aware of and deal with. It's not a huge hurdle, but it's something that I definitely have to be aware of. From students, most of my students, I think, again, appreciate the flexibility, that they can learn when they're ready to learn, that they don't come to my class to hear me lecture new stuff, so that they can learn the new stuff whenever they're ready for it as they're working through the progression of the class. So they like the flexibility. Let's see, other teachers that I've met, they also like that flexible aspect. They like that they can kind of turn over the responsibility of the learning to their students, and it's not a teacher-centered classroom, it's very much a student-centered classroom, and teachers and students, I think, really like that aspect. Parents' feedback that I've got, a lot of them, they don't quite understand it at first, but once they learn how the system works, that they're very willing to embrace this kind of new learning style and understand that it's a unique way to learn, but they also like the fact that I spend lots of time working one-on-one with students who struggle. I think right after the first year, I saw students just on my own exams were performing better on my in-class tests, and I have some data to support that. But I think the best improvement is just students taking responsibility for their own learning. So, a lot of classrooms, kids come to class and they do exactly what they're told, when they're told to do it, how they're told to do it, and they have to prove that they've learned it in one way, and it's usually on a test or exam, right? So I try to give some of that responsibility back to the students. So what I'm seeing students do is take charge of their learning and really want to learn, not just acquire a bunch of points to get a letter grade, but to actually learn the material and demonstrate to me that they've learned it. I would say they're better, because here's why. So, if I'm standing in front of a class of 30 students and I'm talking, there's always somebody in the back who would rather have all of the attention of the class be on them instead of on me as the teacher. And so they're going to act up. They're going to be throwing stuff. They're going to be making smart remarks. They're going to be chit-chatting with their friend instead of paying attention, drawing attention to themselves and away from the center of the attention. Well, if I'm not standing in front of the classroom, there is no center of attention, and there's no one to pull that attention away from. So frankly, all those type of behavior problems are just simply gone, where students are all working. Sometimes they're working in groups, sometimes they're working independently, and I'm just walking around helping them work. Now, that's not to say students aren't off task, but the off-task students are not distracting other students now. Yep. There are some that do, and that struggle with this model. And I've kind of noticed two types of students, if you will, that struggle. The first type is students who are just reluctant learners to begin with, where no matter what you tell them and ask them to do, they're simply not going to do it. They're not engaged. They're not willing to learn. They don't want to learn. They are checked out. And I don't know what to do about that. There will always be reluctant learners, regardless of what model of education you're using. The other type of student that doesn't do well with this model is the student who's kind of mastered the art of playing the game of school, where they're really good at being nice to their teachers, they're really good at doing extra credit, they're really good at getting enough points in order to get an A or a B, but they haven't actually learned anything. So I expect my students to learn, and I expect them to prove to me that they've learned. So, and I have given the control over that over to them, and some students, they just want to be told exactly what to do. And I won't do that. I said, here's what I need you to learn. Here are the resources I'm giving you to learn it. It's up to you to do it. And some students don't want that much responsibility. So those are kind of the two categories of students who struggle with the system. For me as a teacher or for a student?
For a teacher. Well, for both, actually.
Okay, so let's say, in a traditional model where I was standing up in front lecturing and giving students homework, you might have, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes of homework per night. Now they might have a 10 to 15 minute video to view. So frankly, it's a pretty even trade, if nothing else. If students might be even getting some time back under this model from my perspective. Excuse me, as a teacher, if I have a 10-minute video that I need to produce, it takes me probably about 30 minutes to make that video. So 10 minutes to record it, and another 20 minutes to edit and produce it, and then post it online. So I usually budget about, if I'm shooting for a 10-minute video, about 30 minutes total to prepare. I would say the difference is this. There's a relationship and a relational aspect that I have with my students because I see them every day. And I really like that fact, and I like developing those relationships with my students. I think it's very important to have a strong student-teacher relationship in education, and that without that, it's just a bunch of information. But that relational aspect is part of what makes a strong education. So when I'm gone, the substitute is there, and they can manage the class, but it's not me. It's not the same relational thing. The other part of that is, it's really hard to find a chemistry sub, someone who actually knows chemistry and the subject area. So, I mean, if I'm gone, they're going to struggle with the content, because that's what class time is me helping the students understand and wrestle with some of these questions and problems. I have options for the kids. I'm a big firm believer in giving students choice, and so if students want to take notes in a notebook, they can. I also have some follow-along fill-in-the-blank notes that go along with my videos that students can fill in. So some students, they don't write very quickly, and it's kind of hard for them to write everything down, so I kind of have like some blanks to fill in instead of trying to write everything down. And like if I'm working out a problem, I'll have the text of the problem and some space where they can kind of work that out. So that's an option I have as well. Some students are not, like I don't like taking notes. It's just not how I learn. And so I don't like to force that, but I have lots of options for students. And then I also have problem sets, worksheets for students to do. Now, let's say there's 10 problems on a worksheet. Some students will do them all. Some students will do every other problem. Some students will do about every third. And usually if I say if you do the first one and the last one, you're good. And you can move on. I don't require students to do all of the problems of all of the worksheets. Okay. I don't use other teachers. I use my own videos, and I've decided that it's better for me to make my own videos. So there are other good videos out there, but again, it goes back to that relationship aspect that a teacher has with their students, that I think there's great value in a teacher making their own videos so the teachers see their voice, or hear their voice, see their face, see their own handwriting. That's not to say people can't learn from another teacher. I mean, there are schools around this country that use my chemistry videos in their classrooms, and that's great. I'm glad they're learning, but I would prefer that those teachers make their own, and maybe they will. Maybe they're just kind of using my videos as a starting point to launch from. Yeah, I encourage teachers to make their own. And I apologize for the music in the background. I'm sitting right underneath a speaker in a coffee shop right now, so. I don't know if I would say difficult, it just kind of looks different from what I'm doing. So chemistry and like math classes, they're very sequential. You kind of learn one thing and then you use it for the next thing and you use it for the next thing. So that works really, really well because you can kind of let people move through step by step by step, and you don't really have holes in their understanding as long as they're progressing through sequentially. It looks very different than, let's say, like a literature class. So a literature teacher, they're not going to do a lot of direct instruction anyhow. It's mostly going to be discussion of what they've read. But I know some literature teachers, and let's say they're introducing a unit on William Shakespeare. They're going to record a short video beforehand overviewing the life and the history and the influences of William Shakespeare that the students will watch before they come to class for the first day of a unit. And then when they come to class, they're going to read and discuss the works of William Shakespeare instead of learning a bunch of stuff about William Shakespeare. So it looks a little different that way.